When two brothers fall for the same woman, a tangled web of love, betrayal, and redemption unfolds. But what happens when one brother finds true happiness, and the other is left to pick up the pieces? Zach and Mitch had never had the best of relations, all thanks to their family dynamics. Zach, the older brother, was a successful entrepreneur with a construction company that seemed to thrive under his leadership. However, his success came at a cost. He had made his fortune through questionable deals and ruthless business tactics. Despite his wealth, Zach's personal life was complicated, and his relationship with his brother, Mitch, was strained. Mitch, on the other hand, was a hard-working mechanic at a local car dealership. He was kind, honest, and content with his simple life. Their parents had always favored Zach, leaving Mitch feeling overshadowed and undervalued. As a result, the brothers had grown apart, each living their separate lives without much interaction. Mitch had one constant in his life: his friendship with Zoe, a driven and ambitious journalist. Zoe was everything Mitch admired: smart, passionate, and beautiful. However, she had a weakness for luxury and high-end living, often finding herself at expensive restaurants and boutiques. Despite their close friendship, Mitch had never mustered the courage to tell Zoe how he truly felt about her. One day, Zach's world began to crumble. His business partner, Alex, had been using Zach's company's paperwork to build several projects without Zach's knowledge. One of these buildings, a residential complex, had collapsed due to substandard construction practices and defective materials. The incident had caused severe injuries and property damage, and the authorities were now investigating Zach's company for negligence. Desperate for help, Zach turned to the one person he knew who might assist him: his brother, Mitch. Despite their strained relationship, Mitch agreed to help Zach navigate the legal and financial mess he was in. Zoe, being the good friend she was, joined forces with Mitch to assist Zach. As they worked together, Zoe found herself drawn to Zach's charisma and wealth. She admired how he commanded respect and lived a life of luxury, things she had always desired. Meanwhile, Mitch watched with a heavy heart as Zoe fell deeper under Zach's spell. He felt helpless, unable to express his feelings to her now that she seemed so enamored with his brother. Despite this, Mitch remained committed to helping Zach, hoping that one day Zoe would see him in a different light. As Zach's problems escalated, the trio found themselves entangled in a web of deceit and danger. The investigation into the building collapse revealed that Alex had indeed used Zach's company to cover his own illegal activities. However, Zach's name was still tied to the project, making him potentially liable for the damages. As the days went by, in a dramatic confrontation, the truth about Alex's actions was exposed. Zach was faced with the possibility of losing everything he had built, not just his business but also his reputation. Zoe, who had grown close to Zach, stood by him, believing that he was innocent and deserving of a second chance. Mitch, though heartbroken, understood Zoe's choice. He realized that his feelings for her were genuine, but he also saw that she needed someone who could offer her the life she desired. As he watched Zoe and Zach work together to rebuild his brother's life, Mitch found a sense of peace. He knew that he had done the right thing by helping his brother, even if it meant losing his chance with the woman he loved. In the months that followed, Zach began to transform. With Zoe's influence, he started to make amends for his past mistakes and work towards a more honest future. Mitch, though still a bit distant, began to see his brother in a new light. Perhaps, one day, they could rebuild their relationship and become the brothers they once were meant to be. As for Zoe, she found herself falling deeply in love with Zach, not just his wealth or status, but the man he was becoming. She knew how to manage Zach. She found out his weakness and used it to its advantage. She also knew that Zach was jealous of Mitch's carefree spirit and honesty. As Mitch watched Zoe and Zach work together, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Despite his heartache, he had always been supportive of his brother and had helped him in his time of need. However, seeing Zoe and Zach grow closer made him realize that he couldn't keep his feelings hidden forever. One evening, as the sun dipped below the city skyline, Mitch found himself alone with Zoe. They were walking along the river, the cool breeze a welcome respite from the day's tension. Mitch took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this was his chance to be honest with Zoe, to tell her how he truly felt. "Zoe," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk for a moment?" Zoe turned to him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Of course, Mitch. What's on your mind?" Mitch hesitated, his words caught in his throat. He had never been one to express his emotions openly, but he knew he had to be brave now. "I just wanted to say, I've had feelings for you for a long time," he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. As Mitch confessed his feelings to Zoe, he expected a mix of emotions, but what he got was unexpected. Zoe's expression turned cold, and her voice was laced with anger. "How could you do this, Mitch?" she said, her words cutting deep. "You're trying to ruin my future with Zach. You're just a loser who can't even get his own life together. Your mother was right about you." Mitch felt a stinging pain from her words, but he tried to remain calm. "I just wanted to be honest with you, Zoe. I know it might not change anything, but I couldn't keep it inside anymore." Zoe scoffed, turning away from him. "You should have kept it inside. Now, just leave me alone. Stay away from us." The following day, Zach took Zoe to lunch with his parents. Mitch was not invited, a deliberate exclusion that made him feel even more isolated. As they sat around the table, Zoe brought up Mitch's confession, her tone mocking. "You won't believe what Mitch did yesterday," she said, a smirk on her face. "He confessed his love for me. Can you imagine?" Zach's parents laughed, their comments about Mitch being equally harsh. "He's always been jealous of Zach's success," his mother said. "He's just bitter because he can't achieve anything on his own." 3 months went by, and Zoe and Zach's relationship blossomed. They got married in a grand ceremony, with Mitch not even receiving an invitation. As he watched from afar, he couldn't help but feel a deep sadness. He had lost not only his chance with Zoe but also any hope of reconciliation with his family. Despite the pain, Mitch realized that he needed to move on. He couldn't let his unrequited love define him. With a newfound determination, he began to focus on his own life, rebuilding his sense of self-worth and finding happiness in his own accomplishments. After Zoe and Zach's wedding, Mitch felt like he had hit rock bottom. The pain of watching the woman he loved marry his brother was overwhelming, and he found himself slipping into a deep depression. He realized that he needed a change, a chance to start over and leave his heartache behind. With a newfound determination, Mitch decided to move to a different city. He packed his bags, said goodbye to the familiar streets and faces, and embarked on a journey to rediscover himself. The city he chose was vibrant and bustling, full of opportunities for personal growth and new experiences. Mitch enrolled in college, determined to pursue a degree in engineering. He had always been fascinated by mechanics, but now he wanted to expand his knowledge and skills. The challenge of balancing college with work was daunting, but Mitch was driven. He worked at night and on weekends as a mechanic in an auto shop, using his skills to support himself while he studied. As the years passed, Mitch found himself growing both personally and professionally. He made new friends in college and at the auto shop, people who knew him not as Zach's brother but as Mitch, the hard-working and ambitious individual he was becoming. 4 years flew by quickly. Mitch graduated with honors, his degree in engineering opening doors to new career opportunities. He had transformed from a heartbroken mechanic to a confident engineer, ready to take on the world. Despite the distance and time, Mitch still thought about Zoe and Zach occasionally. He wondered how they were doing, if they were happy together. But he no longer felt the same pain he once did. He had moved on, found a new sense of purpose, and was excited about the future ahead. As Mitch settled into his new life, he found a new passion in sharing his knowledge about auto parts and cars. He started a vlog on the internet, where he would document his experiences, share tips, and solve common car troubles. To his surprise, his channel quickly gained traction, and he built up a huge following. People appreciated his honesty, expertise, and engaging storytelling. Mitch's vlog became a go-to resource for car enthusiasts and mechanics alike. He started receiving messages from all over the world, thanking him for his advice and encouragement. Back in his hometown, Mitch's family had no idea about his online success. His parents, who had always favored Zach, had assumed that Mitch would struggle to make a name for himself. But one day, Mitch's father stumbled upon one of his videos while browsing the internet. He was shocked to see how popular Mitch had become, and how much progress he had made without their help. Excited to share this discovery with his wife, he called her over to watch the video. As they sat together, watching Mitch explain complex car repairs with ease, they couldn't believe their eyes. They had always underestimated Mitch, assuming he would never amount to much. But here he was, thriving in a field he loved, and doing it all on his own. For the first time, they realized the harm their toxic behavior had caused. They had always pushed Zach to succeed, often at Mitch's expense, and now they saw the consequences of their actions. Mitch had found success despite their lack of support, and it was a hard pill to swallow. As they watched more of Mitch's videos, they began to understand the man he had become. They saw his confidence, his passion, and his dedication to his craft. For the first time, they felt a sense of pride in Mitch, not because he was successful like Zach, but because he had carved out his own path and found happiness on his own terms. As Mitch's family learned about his progress through his vlog, they couldn't help but share the news with Zoe. When she heard about Mitch's transformation, she was intrigued. She had always seen Mitch as the overshadowed brother, but now she was curious to see how he had turned out. One day, Zoe decided to visit Mitch in his new city. As she arrived at his place, she was taken back by his appearance. Mitch looked handsome and radiant, exuding a confidence she had never seen before. He welcomed her warmly, and they spent the day catching up on old times. Meanwhile, back in her own life, Zoe couldn't help but compare Mitch's success with her current situation. She looked around her home and saw Zach lying on the sofa, his business still struggling. Despite their efforts to keep up appearances, they were drowning in debt, living on credit cards to maintain the illusion of wealth. Zoe felt a pang of regret as she thought about her choices. She had chosen Zach for his wealth and status, but now she was faced with the reality of their financial struggles. Mitch, on the other hand, had built a life of genuine success and happiness without relying on external validation. As Zoe returned home, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she had made a mistake. She began to question whether her marriage to Zach was truly fulfilling or if she had simply settled for a life that looked good on the surface. The contrast between Mitch's newfound success and her own struggles with Zach sparked a period of introspection for Zoe. She started to reevaluate her priorities and consider what truly mattered in life. Perhaps, she thought, it was time to make some changes and find a path that led to genuine happiness, rather than just the appearance of it. As Zoe visited Mitch, he couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. His love for her had not changed. He was proud of the person he had become, but he also knew that reconnecting with his family, especially through Zoe, could lead to complications. Mitch realized that he was in love with his brother's wife, that much had not changed in his life. He knew he needed to set clear boundaries to protect his newfound peace and independence. He decided to take a direct approach. He called Zach and made his intentions clear. "Zach, I need you to keep Zoe away from me. I don't want any contact with any of you," he said firmly. Zach knows his wife, he also knows that their finances were not in shape, and he knew that Zoe might leave him because of that. In first place, he knew that she married him for money, and she stood up Mitch for him because of his money. He was taken back by Mitch's assertiveness. "What's going on, Mitch? You're being really harsh," he replied, trying to understand his brother's perspective. Mitch remained resolute. "I've worked hard to build a new life here, and I don't want anything to disrupt it. I deserve some peace, and I need you to respect that." Zach sighed, knowing that Mitch had always felt overshadowed and undervalued. He realized that his brother's boundaries were not about rejecting them but about protecting himself. "Okay, Mitch. I'll make sure Zoe understands. We'll give you the space you need. Zach agreed, though it was clear he didn't fully understand Mitch's reasons. Mitch felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had set a clear boundary, and hoped that his conversation with Zach would keep Zoe away. As the days passed, Mitch continued to focus on his life, his vlog, and his newfound sense of purpose. He was grateful for the distance between him and his family, knowing it allowed him to flourish without the toxic dynamics that had once held him back. One rainy night he met a charming woman from England. She was stranded with car problems and he helped her. She was kind, funny and intelligent, and had a beautiful accent that captivated Mitch. Despite being alone in a foreign country, and was resilient and determined, qualities that Mitch admired greatly. After a couple of months of getting to know each other, Mitch realized he had fallen deeply in love with N. The memories of Zoe started to disappear from his mind. She was everything he had ever wanted in a partner, supportive, caring, and genuinely interested in his passions. As they grew closer, Mitch knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Mitch proposed to Anne on a romantic evening overlooking the city skyline. To his delight, she said yes. They decided to get married soon, and Mitch knew he had to invite his family. Despite their complicated past, he couldn't imagine his mother not being at his wedding. He invited his parents, Zach and Zoe, knowing it would be a difficult but necessary step towards healing and closure. The wedding day arrived, and Mitch's family was surprised by the invitation. They had never expected Mitch to find happiness so quickly, especially not after everything they had been through. As they arrived at the wedding venue, they were struck by the beauty of the ceremony and the love that Mitch and Anne shared. Mitch's mother, being the toxic woman that she was, started to look for faults in the bride and then in the venue. Zoe was amazed with everything and knew that she made a mistake not accepting Mitch's love confession. She turned her head and looked at her husband, once a pride businessman. Now he didn't even look like himself. Then she looked at Mitch, and she knew that she had never seen him so happy and confident. She realized too late that she had underestimated Mitch and the potential he had always possessed. Zach and his parents were also moved by the occasion, seeing Mitch in a new light and regretting their past actions. As Mitch and Anne exchanged their vows, the atmosphere was filled with joy and forgiveness. Mitch's decision to invite his family had been a brave one, and it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relationships. Despite the past, they were all there to celebrate Mitch's happiness, and for that, he was truly grateful.